In 1970, America was captivated by a woman who dared to live authentically, Mary Tyler Moore. Yet, at the very height of her television fame, she received a late-night phone call from her estranged husband that left her completely frozen. Mary wasn't just a beloved entertainment icon. She helped redefine what it meant to be an independent, confident woman in the midst century. Still, behind the laughter and success were heartbreaking struggles, a crumbling marriage, private pain, and dark moments the public never saw. There are rare, never-before-seen photos and a hidden secret that nearly cost her life. Stay with this video to uncover the full, untold story behind her shining spotlight. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea, or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Mary Tyler Moore was born in December 1936 inches, Brooklyn, New York. From a very young age, she was already drawn to the bright stage lights where she believed she truly belonged. "I knew very early what I wanted to do," she recalled in an interview. By her own admission, she always craved attention. I called it loving to perform, something she had been doing since she was just 3 years old. Moore's uncle noticed her potential and convinced the family to move to Los Angeles, the promised land of Hollywood dreams. There, Moore finished high school and immediately stepped into the showbiz world without hesitation. Her first role was not a breakthrough, but it was an important stepping stone. In the 1950s, Mary played Happy Hot Point, a tiny dancing elf in television commercials aired during the adventures of Azzy and Harriet. Just a few seconds on screen with a youthful face and eager eyes helped her walk through her very first door in the industry. It was not the kind of role that sparked widespread conversation. Yet, it brought Mary an impressive paycheck, $8,000 for only 5 days of work. Adjusted for today's value, that would be more than $93,000. For a girl fresh out of high school, it felt like a promise. Hollywood was ready to welcome her. Life didn't keep smiling at her forever. With her first earnings in hand, Mary thought success would follow her endlessly. What she didn't yet understand was that the old saying, "easy come, easy go," fits the entertainment world perfectly. At 18, alongside money and the first sparks of fame, Mary encountered another major turning point: marriage. Her husband was the next-door neighbour, Richard Murr, 10 years older and completely outside the entertainment industry. He was simply a cranberry juice salesman. They fell in love, got married, and believed that having each other was enough. Yet, less than 2 months later, Mary discovered she was pregnant. As her belly grew, she could no longer squeeze into the tight costume of Happy Hot Point. The producers would not wait, and she was fired at the very moment her career was beginning to take off. A husband and a child should have been her anchor. Though not everyone has the strength to be a mother while trying to survive in a city that competes for every breath, Mary gave birth to an adorable baby boy, Richard Carlton Murr Jr., or Richie, her one true source of pride at that time. Still, even that tiny angel could not save a marriage that started too soon. In 1962, they divorced. Divorced in her 20 seconds, a single mother, jobless. It looked as if Mary Moore's artistic journey had reached a dead end. The thing that makes a star rise, however, is not luck alone. It is relentless perseverance. Mary refused to give up. She searched for every way back into show business, modelling anonymously for album covers and attending any audition she could find. She even tried out for the Danny Thomas show, but was rejected for having a nose that was too small. Danny Thomas joked, "My daughter couldn't possibly have a nose that tiny." Yet, he still remembered that determined young woman. From 1957 to 1959, Mary took on many small uncredited roles. She was often positioned at the corner of the frame, sometimes barely seen. Ironically, the role that finally made audiences take notice showed only her legs. She played a flirtatious receptionist in the TV series Richard Diamond, Private Detective. The camera focused solely on Mary's lower body, but that was enough to spark viewers' curiosity and catch the attention of producers. It was her restart, the next leap in her life. Television legend Danny Thomas may have rejected Moore for his own show, but that didn't mean he failed to recognise her talent. Based solely on his recommendation, Moore was given the chance to step into the spotlight she had always dreamed of. He introduced her for the role of Laura Petrie in a show produced by Carl Reiner. At that time, dozens of seasoned actresses were fiercely competing for this breakout opportunity. Meanwhile, Mary Tyler Moore wasn't even convinced the role was important. She was going through a period of low confidence, unsure whether she could portray the funny and charming wife the script required. Her manager pushed her again and again, practically dragging her to the audition. Moore finally agreed just to avoid another argument. But the moment she read Laura's lines, she realised this was the character she had been waiting for. What started as disinterest quickly turned into determination. She told herself she had to get this role at all costs. The only obstacle was her age. Moore was much younger than what the producers envisioned for a married woman with a child, so she took a bold approach. She lied and said she was older. For most actors, bragging about youth is the usual strategy. Mary Tyler Moore did the exact opposite. That gamble paid off. She won the role, and when the truth eventually came out, the producers laughed it off. They even turned the story into a joke in one of the episodes. Not everyone found it amusing. Dick Van Dyke, who played her husband on the show, wasn't thrilled to learn he had been misled. He felt Moore looked far too young to be the wife of Rob Petrie. His skepticism placed an invisible weight on her shoulders. She had to prove she deserved to stand beside such an established star. Moore didn't fight back with words. She let her performance speak for her. Just a few episodes in, even Dick Van Dyke had to admit what everyone else saw so clearly. Mary Tyler Moore possessed the spark of a true star. Her light, elegant, comedic timing amazed the creative team. Carl Reiner quickly expanded her role far beyond what was originally planned. Moore's success brought a consequence she never wanted. Before she joined, the character Sally Rogers, played by Rosemary, had been intended as the leading woman of the show. Laura was initially only a charming wife supporting Rob Petrie. Then Moore appeared with her radiant smile and effortless humour, and suddenly she became the centre of attention. That shift didn't sit well with Rosemary, who had to share the spotlight she once expected to own. Moore always tried to be friendly with her co-stars, but she could not avoid others' jealousy toward her rising fame. Although she and Rosemary never clashed publicly, their relationship remained distant, and Moore was carrying a darker, personal secret. Her real-life divorce from Richard Murr began to blur into her character on the Dick Van Dyke Show. After she finalised the divorce, the writers changed Laura's last name from Murr to Petrie. It would not be the last time the line between Mary's life and her on-screen persona felt non-existent. Without meaning to, Moore became a symbol of change and a representation of young American women at the time. She never sought to be an icon, nor did she aim to break any societal rules. She just wore what made her comfortable. Yet, the capri pants Laura wore on screen sparked intense behind-the-scenes controversy. A housewife not wearing a dress in the 1960s? For the show's sponsors, it was nearly a branding nightmare. Moore believed clothing should reflect the modern woman, active, flexible, and free from suffocating expectations. She stood firm in her choice, and that quiet defiance unintentionally helped turn Mary Tyler Moore into a groundbreaking figure in American television. Beyond the studio lights, Mary's heart had its own share of Hollywood turbulence. One of those stories involved Elvis Presley. They starred together in Change of Habit in 1969. According to Moore, she was the only actress to ever work alongside the king of rock and roll without falling into his irresistible charm. People often repeat the claim with a skeptical smile, because who could possibly resist Elvis? Another man who drew public attention to Moore was Dick Van Dyke, her co-star on the Dick Van Dyke Show. At first, Van Dyke wasn't particularly fond of Moore, finding her too new and too different. Over time, though, they became much closer than viewers ever realised. They portrayed a married couple so naturally that audiences thought they belonged together, both on-screen and off. That closeness created subtle fractures in Moore's marriage at the time. Moore admitted she felt a slight attraction to Van Jake. Although it never crossed any boundaries, he always treated her like a beloved younger sister. That professional bond led Moore's life toward an entirely different path, where she eventually found her true love, Grant Tinker. Grant Tinker came into Moore's life right when she was at her most vulnerable. He too had just left a failing marriage, but unlike Moore, he was eager to start over. While she was still picking up the pieces of her broken heart, Tinker remained patient and persistent. After reading about Moore's divorce in the newspaper, he quickly reached out and invited her to dinner. Mary declined because everything felt too sudden. Tinker didn't give up. He suggested a trip to Palm Springs. Then he arranged for Moore to travel to New York under the guise of promoting the show. Years later, Moore remembered those moments with warm eyes. She called it a very, very special time in her life. From that patience, love finally grew. They married in 1962, while the Dick Van Dyke Show was hitting its peak. That marriage not only brought Moore the warmth of a family again, but also became a launching pad for her career. Together, she and Tinker created The Mary Tyler Moore Show, a series that made television history and earned her multiple Emmy Awards. People celebrated her. They said she had everything: fame, love, and a powerful place in the entertainment industry. Yet behind every spotlight there are shadows few ever see. The marriage between Moore and Tinker was like an unpredictable tide. When in harmony, their love was beautiful and powerful. When arguments came, everything seemed to collapse right in front of them. Moore's soaring success sometimes stretched the distance between them even further. Long hours on set often became the most frightening intruder in their marriage. Despite trying to hold on tightly, they slowly drifted apart. A relationship that once seemed unbreakable was constantly shifting between affection and fracture, as if their hearts were moving at different speeds. That on-again, off-again love eventually switched off for good in 1973 when they decided to separate. Sadly, another failed marriage would soon no longer be the biggest problem in Moore's life. The year 1980 became the darkest year she would ever face. Not only did she and Tinker finalise their turbulent marriage once and for all, but she was about to endure a tragedy that would scar her forever. While the divorce papers were still being processed, Moore received the most devastating news of her life, delivered by the person she least expected. Her ex-husband, Grant Tinker, called at 5 a.m. on October 15th, 1980. When Moore picked up the phone, she could never have imagined what he was about to say. 4 haunting words. It's Richie. He's gone. That was how Moore learned her beloved son Richie had died in a tragic accident while handling a gun. The loss shattered her heart. After Richie's death, she drowned in regret, reflecting deeply on her life and the choices she had made, especially the times her career had taken priority over her family. As she scattered his ashes along the Owens River in California, she admitted through tears, "There's no doubt about it. When Richie was 5 years old, I let him down." Moore had just completed filming Ordinary People in 1980 when her son passed away. In a cruel twist of fate, she played a grieving mother who loses her child. The coincidence was so painfully ironic that few could believe it was real. The only comfort she received during that unbearable time was an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Before losing Richie, Moore had gone to extreme lengths to embody the character in Ordinary People. Co-star Timothy Hutton recalled how she seemed cold, aloof, and almost refused to interact with him throughout the shoot. Yet, Moore's real-life reaction to losing her son shortly after her second divorce was the complete opposite. In the 1980s, Hollywood tabloids were obsessed with Moore's love life. Paparazzi caught her walking arm in arm with Steve Martin in Los Angeles, then photographed her again in New York alongside a young and mysterious doctor. Fame brought her glamour, but romance remained a whirlwind she could never fully control. Between rumours linking her to Warren Beatty or Michael Lindsay Hogg, the one who seemed to truly reach her most vulnerable side was Robert Levine, a cardiologist. A visit he made in 1982 to treat Moore's mother unexpectedly became the beginning of a love story no one saw coming. It turned out the person who needed healing most was Moore herself, She was nearly 20 years older than Lavigne, something the press found both intriguing and viciously entertaining. Lavigne, however, gave her a sense of safety and youthfulness. They married in November 1983, much to the public's surprise. For once, Moore allowed herself to believe in lasting love. That love became the anchor she needed to finally confront what she had hidden for so long. Moore struggled with substance abuse for years. Few people knew about it because she always appeared in public as the perfect icon. After the wedding, she chose to enter the Betty Ford Center, beginning a painful but necessary path to recovery. She also quit smoking and worked to rebuild her health, which had been deteriorating under the weight of years of stress and emotional trauma. Back in the 1960s, Moore had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, a chronic illness that challenged her throughout her life. Still, she continued to give everything she had to her craft. While filming Mary and Roa 2000, she insisted on performing scenes considered risky. One fall while jumping a fence to chase a dog resulted in a broken wrist. It was the price that age and illness had started to demand. Her health continued to decline. In 2011, she underwent surgery to remove a benign brain tumour. In the final years of her life, she battled heart and kidney complications, along with severe vision loss. The woman who once lit up the screen for millions was now fighting quietly against a body that was failing her. On January 25th, 2017, Mary Tyler Moore took her final breath at the age of 80. She left behind laughter, iconic television moments, and a powerful journey viewers never fully saw. Moore was not just a star. She was living proof that behind the spotlight are hearts that break, struggle, and rise again from the ashes. Her legacy doesn't lie solely in golden statues or record-breaking ratings. Her true value lives in the resilience of a woman who stayed true to her choices. She transformed how Hollywood viewed women on screen. She inspired millions to believe that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It is the quietest form of strength. If you ever smiled because of Mary Tyler Moore, remember that smile was paid for with far more tears than you knew. Even though the screen has faded to black, her story of perseverance and courage remains a beautiful source of hope in a world full of hardship. Heat. I don't. Oh no. Heat.